From Courtside of the Virtual Hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. This is episode 541. I am Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X. With me as always, my co-host Derek, DP3 in our forum, and DP3G and DP384 on X. Derek, the NBA 2K25 preview season rolls on, and we have some other basketball gaming topics on our minds this week. So please, tip us off.
Yeah, and first we will be discussing just that, NBA 2K25 MyCAREER and MyPLAYER news, as most of the new features were published in an official NBA 2K25 Courtside Report. Second, we will once again talk arcade hoops. I asked the community what they would pay for NBA superstars if it came to consoles with basic features. And lastly, the community picked up some classic hoops titles. We will highlight those members and those games. So Andrew, I'm going to have you lead off with the news related to MyCAREER and MyPLAYER, because honestly, these online connected modes bum me out. I know that they are going to be flooded with microtransactions. I know that the gambling mechanics are going to be all over the place. I know that there's going to be an intentional grind. I know that it's going to be kind of constructed in order to get every last penny out of the consumer. So, it's even hard for me to talk about these modes and features and everything without first thinking of that and then just getting totally bummed out.
Oh, for sure. And this is something we brought up when we talked about gameplay last week, is that microtransactions are going to be an issue in these modes. And I do want to acknowledge that, first of all, because that is going to be an underlying issue regardless of whatever good news we have to discuss. And there is some things that are good on paper, just like the gameplay blog. But that underlying issue of microtransactions and grindy mechanics is going to be there, obviously. And I will circle back to that as I finish up my impressions of MyPLAYER and MyCAREER. But to that point, once again, a lot of things in the blog, in the Courtside Report, that are good on paper, and I like the sound of them. But because of the presence of microtransactions, I am skeptical that it's going to be that fun experience that I want to get back into, because I do have my 2K14 MyCAREER, as you know, Derek, which I'm loving because I'm maxed out already. I don't have to start over from scratch. I'm 6 years in. I have history with it. So that's a big reason why I haven't been able to get back into MyCAREER, Derek, is because I have this ongoing MyCAREER that I'm enjoying so much that I can revisit. And of course, it isn't mentioned in this blog, but I guarantee it. I'd be very surprised if it's otherwise when we get the game. But when the servers go offline for 2K25 in a couple of years' time, all this great stuff in MyCAREER, if it does turn out to be as good as advertised, it's not going to be accessible.
Disposable games.
Yeah.
Right. And the good thing is, for those people who may like NBA 2K25, yes, MyCAREER will go away. Yes, you're not going to be able to use your player online. Yes, my team will be gone. However, like I stated, if you truly love the gameplay, you'll still have, My NBA eras. You're going to have, your offline modes, your all-time teams, your classic teams. You're going to be able to go into Play Now. You'll be able to do roster editing, all of that stuff. So there is still something for those who, like the game. But at the same time, it's just a huge bummer for those who really do enjoy playing MyCAREER, those who do enjoy playing online, and those who get into my team, that it just goes away. After a couple of years. And one of the big reasons why people purchase these games is for that access, right? For those modes and whatnot. So a large chunk of the game goes away after 2 years. So yeah, it's like I stated, it's hard to get excited about this stuff, knowing that it's disposable and it's going to be ripped away from gamers eventually.
I just can't get invested in anything these days that I know I'm not going to be able to revisit in a couple of years' time. And maybe I don't ever want to play NBA 2K25 after this year, after its life cycle has come to an end. Maybe I get NBA 2K25 and don't want to play it after a few months, as was the case with NBA 2K24. It is possible. And to that point, Derek, I've seen a few people already defending the game prematurely, saying, oh, everyone's saying that it's just the same game, and look at everything that's new. But we've heard some of this stuff before, Derek, as we said last week. Now, obviously, the game hasn't come out, so we don't know either way as yet. But if you are cynical and skeptical, as we talked about last week, that is understandable because we have seen a lot of promises made before and they've not been as good as advertised, or things have changed post-release with patches and so forth. We've seen a lot of promises repeated through the years in different words, previous games thrown under the bus, promises that were made, revealed to be Band-Aid fixes or whatever. So I hate that attitude, Derek, that at this point in the year, we can't say for sure that it is going to be a better game than 2K24. It may be. We hope it is. But just because we've heard some promising and positive things in the Courtside Reports and seen a few clips that are meant to show the game in a great light, yeah, we can't say that 2K25 is definitely going to be better than 2K24. And I just hate when content creators throw their fellow gamers under the bus.
A very important note. New doesn't mean good. New doesn't mean great. In fact, new, ever since 2K18, has been mostly problems, right? So like when new implementations to the gameplay, new features, the player movement changes, all of that stuff, changes to the online scene, the online store, the online structure. There's not a lot of new that has been positive for probably 6 years.
Sure.
Andrew, right? So they can say something along the lines of, oh, well, it's not the same game. And, look at all these new features. But how many of those new features are going to work out with gamers? How many of those new features are going to be, available in the game without issues or without major tweaking needed? How do we know how many are going to stay when 2K26 is released? Because they were a problem with NBA 2K25. So, I sound negative, right? But the bottom line is that my career, the online scene, et cetera, is in a big way designed to make gamers want to spend money. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
It's designed in order to take every last penny from gamers. It is stock full of microtransactions, things that are not affordable unless you put more money into the game. There is loads of pressure for the consumer to put more money into the game, to upgrade their player, to be able to compete, all of that stuff. There's the intentional grind. For me, like I said, it's this Courtside Report and all these new features and all of that stuff. Spare me. Because if you're not being fair to the gamer, and a lot of the new features are going to need to be scratched relatively soon after, whether it's during the game cycle or in the next release, it's just a bunch of blah again. And I also want to point out that there is once again a lot of blue check marks on Twitter. There's a lot of high YouTube follower influencers. There's a lot of people who work for 2K, et cetera, whether they're a content creator or directly employed by them, that are spouting off with those takes that you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they say that's this, that it's going to be the same game. Look at all these great features. And, NBA 2K25 is going to be the greatest 2K of all time. And just all the same garbage
that they've said before
that we hear every single year. Go back to the preview season of NBA 2K24 and a lot of these same names, some new now that they've got on board, but all of the same names spouting off the same exact verbiage related to trying to pump up this game and get in good with 2K in order to keep their perks and all of that stuff. In my opinion, those content creators should be ashamed of themselves, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know that recently 3 Next makers got suspended. There was an announcement on that. I'm familiar with a couple of them due to talking crap about people on Discord, and screenshots were shared and everything, and saying a bunch of wild stuff. Honestly, I just want to let our listeners know, a lot of the content creators that maybe you follow or that you see posts from online, they're not as innocent as you think they are. They're not looking out for you, right? They're not merely just trying to entertain you and all of that stuff. And I just want to let it be known that there's a lot of content creators out there that are basically doing what they're told and what they think is going to get their name out there. And I think you would agree.
Oh, yeah. It seems like they've got a script sometimes. It feels like they're being fed
exactly.
a script of...
They're being fed stuff to say. right? Fed stuff to say on Twitter and on YouTube and in their YouTube videos. That's why so much of it sounds the same. So what I want to tell our listeners is when you see these posts, approach with caution. When you see these videos and you hear these people talking, approach with caution. Don't blindly follow and don't, blindly take their word for everything, and just understand the big picture of why they're saying what they're saying, and, why they're doing what they're doing. And then look at the game as a whole yourself and think about that as well. So sorry for the rant there, but with the next makers getting suspended and possibly pushed out of the program, with all of these posts going up right now by shills and content creators, people that want to keep their perks, it just super bums me out. And unfortunately, a lot of times they get people on board, and a lot of people spend money they shouldn't spend based on these build videos and based on these My Team pack openings and based on these My Team promotions and all of that stuff. And honestly, if you're going to help with the taking advantage of consumers, you're not really any better yourself.
No, you are basically a paid shill at that point. And it's also bothersome to us because we always strive to be honest and detailed and fair in our criticism, in our critique, our commentary. So when people are rewarded one way or the other with that kind of attitude and that kind of approach, it really does bug us, because we don't feel that you should have that kind of influence if that's your agenda, if that's what you're willing to do. And to the point of the game feeling the same or different, again, we hope to see that improvement every year, as we said in last week's show discussing the gameplay. But at the end of the day, Derek, it is the same series. It's the same company. It's the same people working on the game. There's going to be familiarity. There's going to be some legacy issues, some familiar problems with the approach. I mean, if you go and see an M. Night Shyamalan movie, Derek, is it going to be the same script as his previous films? No, but it's going to be his style, right?
Andrew, this is hilarious, because I actually, right before we started recording this podcast, I just got back from an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
No way. I did not know this.
My girlfriend and you didn't know this. This is a live reaction, folks. I just went and saw Trap with Josh Hartnett is in it. And it was actually a pretty good movie. But yeah, to your point, it's still an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? So yeah, I think the thing is with the NBA 2K series is that there is a lot of 2K fatigue still. And there was a former content creator, and she posted back in February of 2023. Her name was Jayla, so at Jayla Lewis. And she was one of the first big female content creators for the NBA 2K series. And she posted a 2-minute video on Twitter. And I think we talked about this about a year and a half ago when she made this post. But, her post was the end, on to the next chapter. I appreciate everyone who's ever supported me in the 2K community. And this was a girl who was in with 2K. She had a logo and everything. And her video, Andrew, speaks to, I think, how a lot of, content creators feel today. She stated in the video, basically, the game is stuck. It's not getting better. The game is demotivating. And things like your favorite content creator doesn't enjoy playing this game. They are doing it because they feel like they have to. She stated she wasn't enjoying editing gameplay or playing the game. She wanted to get back to enjoying making content, good content. So, yeah, I think that speaks volumes, right? And I think that there's a lot of those content creators that you see today that are, feel like they have to stream, right? That they have to make these videos, that they don't really want to make these videos, but they feel like they have to, right? In order to keep their perks or in order to strive to be part of 2K and everything. And I think that's one of my favorite things, to bring it back to what you said about us at the NLSC. I think that that's what has made me stick around so long, Andrew. And I've been doing the top 10 now for over 4 years. And, I create content for the channel. We've been doing that together for a few years as well, is the fact that we're not tied to anything, right?
No, we do what we want.
I don't feel like I have to make a gameplay video. I upload gameplay videos when I want, right? And I'll play a game with you that I want to play in order to, capture that footage. And then it's exciting to, share that footage with the community. We don't feel like we have to do what we're doing on the NLSC, right? We're doing it for all the right reasons. So, but just keep her words in mind when you're watching, seeing these social media posts go up, when you're seeing these, people like use the same verbiage, right? The same script. It looks like they're reading from a script or they were handed scripts, etc. When you see these YouTube videos go up, saying, oh, this is the best build. Oh, no, now this is the best build. Oh, I found a new build. This one's a good one. All of that stuff. And when you see people posting, shooting down critiques or saying things like, and this is one of your worst hated ones, you're just not good at the game. So that's why you're critiquing it. Yeah. Stuff like that. Like, just keep everything that I've said on this show, and Andrew, has touched on as well. Just keep that stuff in mind.
All the usual cliches. Oh, everybody hates the new game and then pretends to love it later. No, this is not a thing. There may be some people who do that. There may be people whose opinions change, and there are reasons for that. Just so much disingenuous commentary out there, and it really does feel like they're shilling for the game, so it's disappointing to see. With that being said, we will always give our honest opinion, Derek. So let's dive into some of this news about NBA 2K25, MyCAREER and MyPLAYER. And I summarised this on the site in an article responding to the Courtside blog, the key points there, as I always do. And they outline their goals for MyCAREER this year, which are to basically provide a more tailored experience with different ways to play, depending on whether you're a newcomer, a veteran, or just experienced with the mode. Whatever your level of experience with MyCAREER and MyPLAYER is, that it will have a tailored experience for you. Sounds good in theory. We shall see, obviously. Some of the things that stand out to me, Derek, are the optional story being back, that the story is optional and played in flashback, and that you don't have to play it. But if you do, you get a bonus, a MyPoints accelerator, which speeds up your badge progress. Badges have been reduced to 40 badges, 40 skill badges. That reduction has been done to make each one feel equally valuable and desirable. Fewer overly specialized badges. Once again, on paper, I like that idea. Takeover, which you and I are not fans of, has been revamped into a 5-level system, with levels 4 and 5 being unlocked after reaching the previous level in 30 different games, which is pretty balanced. It's not too many, it's not too few, so again, I like that in theory, but the takeover mechanic, I think, is very overpowering. Certainly online it is, but they have revamped that and the badge system a little bit. They've got other mechanics such as the badge perks are back, permanent immediate boosts can be earned with badge elevators, etc. There's also cap breakers this year. So they've revamped the MyPLAYER build system a little bit, and they're also bringing back community builds, and there's going to be more information in the builder, including badges, takeovers, and signature animations for those community builds. Once again, all good in theory. I like the idea, Derek, of being able to skip the story or play it later in flashback. That is a cool idea, and it means you're not stuck slogging through a story that is less cinematic than before, but still not necessarily very inspiring. And they've also got some other cool features, expanded key games, more flexibility in the key games, and having your matchups based on your overall rating. You've got jersey swaps that you can unlock with completing certain challenges against top players. And of course, MyCourt is returning, which I really like, Derek. I actually really like MyCourt. I like the idea of being able to customize an area in a game. Reminds me of the locker room in some old WWE games. The crib, of course, in 2K6, 2K7, around about that time. I think there's fun to be had when you can have a customizable area like that. And of course, being able to shoot around, test out your jump shot, or just mess around and just be able to shoot around for a little bit with your MyPLAYER. I do actually miss being able to do that in 2K14. In 2K14 MyCAREER, because it didn't have that yet. That came in 2K15 MyCourt. Oh, and perhaps the biggest thing of all, Season XP can be earned through NBA games, so you can level up to the rewards without having to play online. So again, you can play the game in different ways and get the rewards, which
they'll
I think
be small. Let's be honest. Let's not kid ourselves.
I mean, the
rewards that you get are going to be so small.
I mean, they're often
it's not going to make much
they're
of a
often
difference.
cosmetic items and everything, and they're not necessarily exciting. But for people who would like to earn the rewards, you can now get them with NBA gameplay, which I think is the right move. Look, I'm sure there's going to be some online elitists who balk at that, but to that I say, consider when you couldn't earn badge progress in online games, when you could only earn that in NBA gameplay. That was a bad idea. So they brought badge progression into the online arena as well. No matter where you played, you were always leveling up your player, as it should be. So this is the same thing. No matter how you play, you are earning XP towards seasonal rewards. So if anyone wants to be elitist about that, well, hey, I don't like elitism and gatekeeping in general, Derek, so I'm always going to push back on it. But there is a precedent here that says that making progress across the whole mode, no matter how you play, is a good thing. So that is my argument there. So the return of MyCourt, Season XP across all modes of play within MyCAREER and its connected experiences, some of the changes to badges, the story is optional and there are rewards for playing through it. It's also bringing in some FIBA teams because the backstory includes playing an under-19s FIBA World Championship game, so there's more content coming in. All good in theory, and I like the sound of it. Am I going to get into MyCAREER in 2K25, Derek? I'll give it a look because I want to at least comment on it, but once again, what is the grind going to be like? What is the progression of attributes going to be like? VC earning, etc. Because that is something they didn't touch on, because that is something that probably hasn't changed. It's probably still going to be very harsh because, of course, it is tied to recurrent revenue mechanics, so I'm not expecting an improvement there, and that is key. These changes to badges and takeover, they sound fine in theory, and the badge progression will be sped up by playing through the story, a 5% boost, nothing to sneeze at, it's still there, it's still better than nothing, and the consolidation into 40 skill badges, getting rid of some redundant badges and overly specialized ones, and making that less grindy and making them all equally desirable and valuable, fantastic, but it's still going to have those grindy mechanics to get your attributes from absolutely terrible, you shouldn't even be in the NBA, to at least viable, and if you want to play online, you're going to have to grind really hard or pay early on to at least be competitive in the scene, and who knows, the meta is probably going to be broken within the first month or so. I've seen, I think it was Zach Timmerman on Twitter, on X, saying, I don't like OP builds, they're gone this year. Heard it before, Derek. I can still see people breaking that meta, finding exploits in the mechanics, so the online scene is still going to be problematic. Yes, I'll check it out. Yes, some of these things sound pretty good on paper, just like in the gameplay blog, but no, I'm not just going to blindly say, Derek, that this is 100% better and it's going to be fantastic and great, because we have seen some of these promises before, or similar promises at the very least. There are still going to be issues with grinding, I have no doubt, because that is very intentionally not been mentioned. So, yeah, MyCAREER is still going to have some issues.
I have absolutely no comments on any of those MyCAREER updates. I just, like I stated, I know how the mode works. I know the primary goal of that mode. And I don't have any comments on Takeover. You know how I feel about Takeover in general. I don't have any comments on what they're doing with badges. I read the entire Courtside Report. In fact, I asked a community question related to this Courtside Report. But yeah, I'll tell you, this is all I'm going to say, Andrew. For those listening to this podcast, if you're interested in going online and going into MyCAREER and building a player, do whatever you possibly can to avoid spending extra money.
Yes.
Do whatever you possibly can to enjoy this game without consistently feeding this machine. You deserve better, okay? What you're paying for online in NBA 2K25 is all going to go away in 2 years, okay? All the money that you're putting into this mode, everything that you do with your player, all of that stuff, you are going to drop it when the new game comes out, right? When 2K26 comes out, and you know it. Do not put hundreds and hundreds of dollars into this game. Don't put $200 into it, $500 into it, $1,000. Do whatever you possibly can to do very little money extra spent or no extra money spent, and have fun. And if you don't have time to, create a player that is going to be fun to use online, so if you're not able to, fight through that intentional grind, try to find another way to have fun with the game, right? Instead of feeding the machine. There's offline content. You can start a My League. You can create a court, your jerseys, start a fantasy team, or, use maybe a bottom feeder team and try to bring them to prominence. Connect online maybe with people using regular NBA teams, right? To try to get some good games in there, et cetera. So I want consumers to feel like they're not always being taken advantage of, right? So the other point that I want to make on this is, did you notice, Andrew, that nobody comes after us, even though we do get a consistent, we have a good following, and, we get a lot of people listening to the show week in and week out, and, we put our opinions on X as well, et cetera, and we've shot down microtransactions. Did you notice that nobody really comes at us? Do you know why? because we are right, because they know we're right. And we're talking about it in a way that makes sense and attacks the problem. And most people don't have the guts to do that. Most people are worried about how they're going to look to Desar or Chris Manning or maybe, high follower influencers and stuff like that on social media. I don't care. You don't care. And you're going to continue writing your articles, calling this stuff out. We're going to continue talking about it on the podcast and whatnot. But I just find it funny that not one of them tries to come at us, tries to correct us or anything like that. That's because they know we are right.
And of course, we are a couple of likable fellows, which is why people don't come after us. But
super likable. I mean, how can you not want to, go
lovable
along
even
with what we say, Andrew, right? Yeah. Great guys.
Absolutely. Sometimes you get a little bit of pushback when my article on the increase in prices in MyCAREER went a little bit viral, I suppose, within the basketball gaming community. There was a bit of a spread. Dom2K reposted it at the time. I got some pushback from people saying, "Oh, inflation, bro," and things like that, and not saying it in a tongue-in-cheek way of, "Oh, well, inflation." They were saying, "Well, it's just the way economy works," and no, it's a fictional in-game economy, guys. We don't need to represent inflation in that. So there is the occasional people, you get occasional shills dropping into our replies or whatever, but that is very rare.
Right, but wait. There's a difference. There's a difference, though, between that person that makes that comment that has 30 followers or maybe even upwards to 1,000, and I'm talking about high follower content creators. I'm talking about developers, right?
Sure.
Because they comment on other stuff, right? And they will call out stuff that other people say and everything. I'm talking about high follower content creators. I'm talking about people who work for 2K, people that are part of their community programs, all of that stuff. But to your point, I want to point something out. Yes, you will get the occasional person that says, well, get good, Andrew, right?
Of course, yeah.
Or they'll state something along the lines of inflation, bro, like you just stated. But those comments are also very rare and seldom. Why? Because the points that you're making in the articles, calling this stuff out and showing true evidence is undeniable, right? By like the majority of people. So the point is that you're doing a good job calling it out. We are going to continue calling it out, and we don't care what anybody says.
Well, that's right. And like you said, we don't care about losing access because that ship has sailed the minute we decided
we don't have access. We are blacklisted, Andrew. That was the funny part too, because when these 3 next makers recently got suspended for basically being jerks, right?
Horrible conduct
in a Discord, just absolutely horrible conduct. And I will say that to their faces. In fact, one of them, him and I have gotten into it before, but this is something I live by, Andrew. Never say something that you wouldn't say to somebody's face, right?
Yeah.
Never say something in a chat, anywhere else, to anybody that you know in real life either. Never say something that you wouldn't say to somebody else's face. And obviously these guys would never have said any of that to this girl's face or to anybody else that they were talking about's face, because they know that it would have been bad for their brand, right? And they probably are more than likely just keyboard warriors anyway, right?
Sure.
But back to the blacklist point, they were talking about somebody who was blacklisted for doing like a leak, right? Like a few years back, I guess, they were part of the preview season process. They got privy apparently to some information that was not supposed to be released yet, and they did a leak. That's what they were talking about, and they were like kind of crapping on this person or whatever. But we know we're blacklisted, right? We're probably blacklisted from both EA and from 2K. And you know what? I actually wear that kind of as like a badge of honor. I think you might too. Like, you want to talk about badges? That's one that we're both happy to have because if we weren't blacklisted, more than likely as content creators, we weren't discussing the real issues, right? We weren't standing up for gamers. We weren't talking about these predatory practices from Electronic Arts and from Take-Two. So yeah, we will take that badge and wear it with pride.
Absolutely. And look, it did bug me when that new community manager came in at EA, and basically gave the cold shoulder to all the old guard. I think that I think the results of NBA Live 19 speak for themselves as far as ignoring the feedback of people who've been playing the game for years and supporting the game for years and giving feedback for years. It does bother me the way I was treated there, but as far as having to do the things you have to do and be the shill you have to be in those programs, yeah, then that's I would much rather, as you say, do what we do and be honest and not have to jump through those hoops and be dishonest and disingenuous just to have those perks and access. It didn't used to be like that. It would bother me more back in the day when our approach was appreciated and rewarded with that access, with those perks, with that respect from the developers. It would bother me then, but knowing what I know now and seeing what it's become and how the game is now played, if you will, then yeah, no question, I'd much rather hold my head up high and do what we do and call these things out. And yes, there are some things in this MyCAREER and MyPLAYER Courtside Report that sound good, just as the gameplay report did. I will check out the mode. Hopefully it works out for the people who want to play it. I think there's going to be a lot of problems, especially with the online scene, because if they don't have matchmaking, if they don't have that proper balance, if the starting ratings are still so low, if the grind is as bad as it's been, then a lot of this stuff is going to be moot, unfortunately, because it does sound like there's some great changes there, but as long as the greed is there, Derek, as long as the greed of grindy attribute upgrades is there, it's going to be a problem. And here's the ironic thing, Derek, it's also going to work against the skill gap that they're going for.
Yeah, I just think the skill gap thing, for the most part, online is just BS anyway. I think the people that have dominated the online scene over the last few years, who post these great records and everything, and they post their gameplay videos, are just people that know how to cheese the game the best. And I just recently watched somebody taking turnaround threes from a foot inside half court and hitting them, right? Like, that's not skill. That's this guy just kind of cheesing the game and being absolutely loaded when it comes to his player build and all of that stuff. And he probably doesn't have that great knowledge of the game either, especially if you're taking threes a foot inside half court, right? So, like, I don't know. I try to stay away from that scene. And the biggest thing with me is I just want people to have fun, and I want them to feel like they're not being taken advantage of. So I guess my hope would be, when it comes to the online stuff with MyCAREER, people building their players, all of that stuff, is that they feel like they got the most out of the game, that overall they enjoyed that content, and that they didn't break the bank on those modes. And if people got more enjoyment than frustration, then that would be a major plus.
Exactly. And to that point, I don't get the same enjoyment of we're trying to grind up a player. I did it year after year. I look back on that, Derek, and wondered why I enjoyed it so much. And yes, I was in a rut and everything, but for a while there, it was grindy but not unmanageable. Like, I look back at 2K17, 18, 19. Well, 18 I didn't spend as much time with because I didn't enjoy the game as much, but 19, it was viable to go no money spent and to jump online fairly early, because I was so into the NBA side of MyCAREER and upgrading quickly. And indeed, a few years back when I posted my article on the rising cost of MyCAREER, Agent 00 saw that article, went back and did some more research, went back and looked through videos and looked at VC prices, because of course you can no longer do that in games where the servers are offline. You don't have access to VC prices. So he went back and did the research in videos and basically proved what I said and showed that there is a fluctuation in value of VC, the VC payouts in MyCAREER games, and how much it basically costs, not only if you're doing no money spent, but also if you do want to buy some VC here and there. It basically bore out what I said about the rising cost of MyCAREER. So, shout out to Agent 00 for doing that video and expanding on that point. That was a fantastic video. I really enjoyed him seeing that, and I appreciate him giving me a shout out in that video. But to that point, it has gotten even greedier, and even greedier since NBA Live went away, Derek. I'll just put it out there that even if they weren't true competition as far as sales or reception, it still gave gamers an alternative, as we've said before. And now there's no alternative at all. They can really just ramp up the greed, and they've been doing so. So that is why I'm not that keen on playing MyCAREER in 2K25. I will check it out. I do like the sound of what I'm reading as far as the approach, but it's just undermined so much by the greed and the grind and the microtransactions.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to point out, too, before we move into our last topic, that Do you remember when I called out the roster issues on NBA 2K21? And I posted it on Twitter, and it gained some traction. I think there was, over 5,000 likes. And then somebody also put my post on Reddit.
Yes.
And then it gained traction there. Do you remember who I tagged in that thread? It was Desar, Chris Manning. I want to say Scott O'Gallagher I mentioned in that thread as well. I want to say that I tagged Stoffer, or the guy that works on the rosters. I tagged Ronnie 2K, even though we know he has nothing to do with the making of the game, right? But I wanted to tag him as well. But that's the thing is, and I'll go back to what I said earlier, I would say all of that stuff to them, to their face. I've tagged them on social media with stuff like that. And that's why, like I stated, like overall, like we know we're blacklisted. Right. So I want to get to one final point on NBA 2K25 before we switch topics here. Did you see that new gameplay video? It was posted by @NBA2K Movement, and it said first real #NBA 2K25 gameplay. How much did that look like NBA Live 18 and Live 19?
Yeah.
The court, even the graphics look similar. The outfits, etc. And it's really funny. So it was like a minute-long video. The most popular comment was, "They stole NBA Live's bag." And it got 1.6K likes and a bunch of comments underneath. Then the next comment was NBA Live with 3 question marks. Somebody else stated, "Why is this looking like NBA Live? LFG, so let's effing go." They've been taking, and somebody else states, "They've been taking from Live for years." And then somebody else goes, "It's so funny because I have literally talked about Live and how smooth it was and how 2K should follow suit. So I hope this ain't said as a bad thing." And then somebody goes, "I wasn't the only one that thought it looked like Live." And somebody else goes, I thought I was the only one that noticed. So, like, it is really funny, right? Because the @NBA 2K Movement channel on Twitter, that account is there to promote NBA 2K, right? They got a blue check mark. It says NBA 2K25. They got NBA 2K as their logo. But for all those people that talk about how nobody wants NBA Live back, or they didn't like anything about the recent NBA Lives, and that NBA Live should just turn into a street game, or et cetera. It's funny. It seems like there's a lot of people that liked the movement and overall look of some of the recent NBA Lives, and the fact that they want that competitor, right, in the space. So I just thought that post was interesting.
But Derek, I thought that NBA Live was never good and never did anything good or anything worth borrowing at all, and that nobody plays NBA Live and nobody wants a competitor or NBA Live or otherwise back in the space. That's what I thought. That's what I've been told by pretty influential people who've been saying that, funnily enough.
Well, NBA Live 07 for the 360 sucks, obviously, and NBA Live 08 wasn't much better.
Are you telling me that 360 with T-Mac that I sent you wasn't awesome?
The Baron Davis reverse dunk you sent me from Live 07 360 actually might make it into the top 10.
Surprisingly good.
It's probably the cleanest move I've ever seen
in that
game where you actually spun off the defender, and it wasn't like the worst looking rocket dunk. But no, that game is poor. NBA Live 14, it was poor. NBA Live 15 and 16 can both be enjoyable for me, but they were kind of rough and missing a lot of features. At Live 18 and Live 19, obviously, once again, missing a lot of the features that made the series great, and was also rough from a gameplay standpoint in many different ways, especially with NBA Live 19. But we still want that competitor in the space.
Absolutely.
Right, and we still want a company to come in, and not saying that EA Sports would, because they've shown signs of being greedy as well, but somebody to come into that space and be more fair to the gamer, right? And, maybe have an online mode that, doesn't leave the gamer feeling like they're being taken advantage of, et cetera. But yeah, that footage, it is really funny because it does, from a visual standpoint, look a lot like NBA Live 18 and NBA Live 19.
And look, I don't trust EA to be that much fairer across the board. And of course, Live 18, 19, and earlier games did have microtransactions as far as Ultimate Team. You could actually spend real money in that mode, not in the career modes. If the games are doing better, would the Rising Star and the One also have had microtransactions? I'm pretty sure they would have. And I'm pretty sure EA would try that if they were to return to the space. But if you do have two competitors offering a game to play, then yes, they're both going to have those mechanics, but I think there's going to be some level of fairness as they try and compete with each other. And I won't get right into it because we do want to move on to our next topic here, Derek, but I have been playing a bit of Live 18, the one, recently, going through the streets, the Pro-Am Tour, just out of interest. Also wanted to grab some screenshots for future features as well, and actually been having a decent time with it. Are there things about MyCAREER that I like, even MyCAREER in recent games that I think are better? Absolutely. They definitely made some mistakes there, which, again, I'll get into it some other time, but it's actually a pretty solid experience. And one of the best things about it is that the ratings, even before you level up, are viable. At least your athletic ratings are viable. And looks like they've made some changes in 2K25, actually. Base stamina of 85 for all players, and you increase that through going to the Gatorade gym, so you don't have to spend VC on that. That's a nice little change there, but they didn't mention any of the other athletic attributes in that Courtside Report, Derek, and those are the little things you have to spend an extra VC on above skills that is how you waste VC, how it becomes so grindy. So that is something about Live 18's, the one, and also Rising Star even before that in Live 14, 15, 16. Obviously 14 wasn't that fun to play, but Rising Star was there for what it's worth, that those modes did have those fairer starting ratings, that you at least weren't so sluggish on the court because you had some decent athletic ratings. You could still upgrade, but it was mostly about upgrading the skills and key skills, the way they've handled it. It's interesting. It has its drawbacks as well. But yeah, I have been playing a little bit of that this week. So yeah, that was an interesting comparison to make.
And from my memory too, Andrew, that NBA Live 19, one of the positives for the game was that people felt like the one was fair to them.
Yes.
Right? That the online player builder was a lot more fair than what 2K puts out, and they did feel like they were able to go no money spent with that game.
So just to wrap up these reactions to the MyCAREER and MyPLAYER news this week, we've got a couple of community reactions here. Royce over on Facebook says, yeah, sorry, still going to stay away. The modes don't do that much for me as a gamer as they once did. You can relate, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the whole 2K fatigue, right? It's feeling like you're getting a similar product every single year, where there's very limited positive changes when it comes to gameplay. In fact, a lot of times the gameplay gets worse. The graphics basically stay the same, like the visual appeal doesn't change, etc. I think there's a lot of fatigue overall with the 2K series.
And we have a couple of comments in the forum that we wanted to read out as well. The Point Forward says, I describe myself as cautiously optimistic now. Some nice quality of life improvements, offline XP, and ideas that look good at least on paper, which is what I said, Derek. He continues, I think that especially for primarily offline players like me nowadays, it would depend on the progression flow a lot. 2K24 progression just felt too slow. I personally felt like they removed the fashion and music roots, but didn't replace their VC rewards with anything. And I absolutely agree. Not only that the progression is slow, but the quests and everything that had nothing to do with basketball that I didn't like at least did have VC rewards. And when they took them out, they didn't replace them with alternatives, with equivalents. It's the same reason they took out the daily bonus, where you could do some in-game tasks, hit some statistical goals, Derek, back in 2K... Was it 2K17 through to 2K21? Actually, 2K21, it was bugged. So let's say 2K70 to 2K20 as far as it working, where if you hit those goals every day, you could get 1,000 to 5,000 extra VC. That added up. That helped out with the grind. You don't have that anymore. So he makes a great point there.
I do want to point out that he stated he was cautiously optimistic, and that was a good change for him, right? I go into each one of these releases now as basically expecting to be disappointed, and then if something's good about the game, I'm happy about it, right?
Same.
So like my bar is so low in relation to positivity. But yeah, as far as VC rewards, I don't want to get too much into it, but basically from what people say and from my experience playing offline games when there was VC rewards for that and whatnot, just the rewards are so low that you can't really do anything with them, right? You have to grind an unbelievable amount in order to, get the amount of VC you need for a specific upgrade. Or, when it comes to my team, you need to play a ton of games in order to get the resources to get a box, right? Or or a very or a valuable pack, etc. So I'm really sick, honestly, Andrew, of hearing about VC rewards, about my team points. Just overall, I'm kind of sick of hearing about the whole rewards thing, because the entire design of that reward system is to make the amount you get low, so you feel like you have to spend more money, right? So you feel like you have to buy VC. So you have to spend $20 to get a specific amount, or $30 or $50. They even have $100 VC rewards that you can buy. Like, you can spend $100 on the game and it gives you like 500,000 VC or something like that. I don't know what it is. But the point is that the whole VC reward system is designed to suck.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And that is a recurring issue. And yeah, I think that cautious optimism is definitely a wise approach. It is kind of the approach that I take. And like you, and like I said in last week's Monday tip-off, that with my hopes and expectations for NBA 2K25, that yes, I'm letting a bit of cynicism and certainly skepticism creep in, but I'm kind of setting the bar low and hoping that it'll exceed that low bar. And that's kind of where I'm at as well.
Yeah. I may be being negative mostly on this podcast, but honestly, all I've been reading all week, I can't get away from it, is people pushing this game, like pushing these features and shooting down criticisms and shooting down people who say they have 2K fatigue. I've seen people being shot down for bringing up the microtransaction issue, stating, well, dude, you don't have to pay. It's not required, and stuff like that. And I am just, I'm seeing all of these people with blue check marks and, people, basically shilling for this company and trying to make it so they either get in with the 2K program or keep their current access. And it is just exhausting. It's exhausting reading it. So yeah, I may be being negative on this podcast, but you can see where it's coming from.
Oh, we're absolutely sick of it. It's dirty pool, shall we say. And one last comment here from Murat, modder in the community, of course, says, if we can mod the game on PC, then the authenticity of a European basketball mod or national team mod will be off the charts. I saw the reveal video, and FIBA Court looks fantastic with backboard, electronic ads. This is great. And yeah, that is another angle, of course, that any content that we have in the game is something that we can potentially repurpose. Now, as we've said before, it remains to be seen when and how we can mod NBA 2K25 on PC. With it being a new-gen port this year, there may be a delay in getting that going. We'll certainly have to work on the tools and see what we can do out of the gate. There may not be as many mods at the beginning, but if we can find a way, then any kind of content that's in the game like that we can potentially repurpose is fantastic. Look what TG So Good has done in past years, Derek, bringing some of the online courts, the park courts, into blacktop mode and things like that.
Oftentimes the base is everything, right? Having those resources at your disposal, having them already made and in the game. And that's how you hit the ground running with these amazing roster mods. And a lot of times, when that content is in the game by default, it allows these giant roster projects to get spearheaded, right? And that's what we love to see, the real big ones, the ones that are full single seasons done right, or UBR style rosters, etc. It is super exciting.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, NBA-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at NBA-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. But yeah, that's about all for the MyCAREER and MyPLAYER news. That's our taking it, and thank you to the community for weighing in as well. And yeah, keep the discussion going. If you have any thoughts on MyCAREER and MyPLAYER, let us know.
Absolutely. Join in the discussion on the Discord, on the forum, on Twitter, etc. We'd love to hear from you. So, Andrew, I asked the community, basketball gamers, if NBA superstars came to consoles and added beat all 30 NBA teams challenge, basic online connectivity, so quick game, local multiplayer, so co-op and head-to-head, how much would you be willing to pay for it? $10, $20, more? And this is a continuation of the conversation that we had on last week's show. So NBA Superstars is an NBA Jam inspired game, and it is truly NBA Jam inspired, right? It's
Definitely
got the NBA teams, the On Fire system. It has Tim Kitzrow. It is truly NBA Jam inspired. But if you remember correctly, I went to our local arcade. I played 4 games on it, and I recorded and shared some of that footage. And there was a lot of excitement around that footage that I shared.
People want to
One
play
of the things
it,
that I mentioned, yeah, they want to play it. They want to get their hands on it, and they want it to come to consoles.
Yes.
I mentioned on last week's show that I think that there is a genuine big market for this game if it went to console, even as is, just with those tweaks that I just mentioned, for $10. Like, I think people would spend $10. So that's why I asked this question. And these were the responses. Caleb Swint states, hopefully NBA Superstars will release on console soon. It will probably have crossplay too. And I asked him, I said, if it had the features I just listed, would you drop $10 on it? And Andrew, states he would pay $20 or $40 for it and would possibly spend $50 for that game. At B-Ball Video Game states $20 seems fair and would be a great price to attract buyers. So not $10, Andrew, $20. Steven, the Live King, states, I bought NBA Jam for $10. I would pay $20 for this, though. Himbo Slice states, played this in arcade. It's fun as F. They can bring it to console, and I would play it. I just need a cap mode and maybe a playoff mode or season mode. So, yes, he would buy the game. General Dictator states $29.99 is fair. Willie Goller states, I would pay $20, but I'm a huge fan of the NBA Jam Hang Time Showtime series. So he wants to play it because it's fun, right? But he also has nostalgia. So we talked about that. It's not just a nostalgia play, but there are people that would buy this based on the nostalgia that they have and fun they had with NBA Jam.
I mean,
Hangtime and
appealing to
Showtime.
nostalgia is a big thing. I mean, look at all the reboots of TV series and movies and things. I mean, you can make a lot of money off nostalgia these days, so dismissing something as a nostalgia play, as we said last week, is foolish.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also a lot of people who never touch those video games, the younger crowd, who would absolutely pay money for this.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
A lot of people that are responding to this are not older gamers. Jeremy Gostin states, I'll pay $20. Ian just states, we need it. And he posts a GIF of a broken backboard on NBA Jam. And then Brandon Clark says, I'd pay up to $30. Step Off says $30 easily. Raphael states $39.99. So, Andrew, those are all the positive responses on Twitter. And that's the majority of the responses. So, yeah, I think that people would pick up this game and they'd be willing to spend more than $10.
Absolutely, and Royce on Facebook also adds $10 to $20 would be fine. I'd like to see maybe some legends added in, maybe not to be greedy, but like 2 to 5 per team from all eras. Also, the ability to choose your teammates would be better to have. And basically says, I'd love it to come to consoles. So there is definitely interest in this game. A lot of comments when I shared your footage on our Facebook page said, where can I get this? And had to explain to them that it was an arcade exclusive at this time. But again, that just goes to show that there is interest in this game. And there are obviously issues that you can see in the footage. We talked about it last week. You gave your impressions and mentioned that there are those issues that need polish, and that if it was polished up, it would be so much better for a home port or otherwise. But as is, people are still interested in this game, having an alternative, having an arcade game. So, yeah.
And they're willing to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
They're willing to pay the $10 to $20. Some people are saying $30 to $40. That's how bad people want this style of game in the space. There were 2 comments on the post that were not in favor, technically, but not for the reasons you would think. So, Rock Jeff Cortina states, Game Pass free to play. LOL. I want simulation b-ball game. I'm not willing to pay for anything else. So he's only willing to pay for a sim b-ball game, but he'd play the game if it was free. And I want to make a point on that. Let's say he gets his hands on the on a free-to-play version of NBA Superstars. That is still promotion for NBA Superstars, right? He's a content creator. He may post footage of it. He may talk positively about it. And maybe he wouldn't buy the game, but he could get other people to put money into it if it went up for sale, right? So he's not saying he wouldn't play it. he would. The other is Bits of Joshua. He states, not hating on it, but I wouldn't. I have my fill of arcade basketball games. So he just doesn't have an interest in arcade basketball games, and that is fine. So I did receive a couple responses on Discord. We had QB1120 state, from what you've posted, it seems like a pretty basic Jam clone. And just knowing the quality I will get from Raw Thrills, it would be no more than $10, but they'd charge like $30 for it. So he's still willing to spend $10. Shy Guy states, this reminds me of NBA Unrivaled. He states $25 max just to support the idea of a new arcade basketball game. So he would spend $25 on a game just to support arcade NBA hoops. And then ZCB44 states, probably like $30 max. We sorely need more officially licensed arcade style sports games, so I'd want to support that. Plus, it looks solid enough and would be something fun to play with my kids. So there's that play as well. And I just want to point that out, that a lot of fathers today grew up with video games now, right? A lot of fathers today are still playing video games. So people that are in their late 20s, 30s, even 40s and whatnot. And this is something that they could play with their kids and have a blast with. So there's also that market as well.
And I do get the reluctance to pay too much for the game or to not have that interest in the game at all. Maybe it isn't the style of game you like, or maybe it doesn't look good enough at this time. I would pick up the game for, I won't say any price, because that's just letting a billion-dollar corporation charge you anything they want. But as a consumer, I would want it to be in that $10, $15, $20 range, especially if we're talking US dollars, because then we're getting to 20, 25, 30 Australian. And if it's a digital-only release that is an arcade title that doesn't quite have the depth of an On Fire edition, which was around that price point, then I wouldn't want to pay more than that. Now, as a content creator who would be covering the game and kind of looks at it as an investment, and obviously a collection as well, Derek, would I pay a little bit more? Probably. I wouldn't necessarily be thrilled about it. I would certainly probably say I don't necessarily think it is worth the price. Maybe it's worth getting on sale, depending on the quality of the game, after polishing it, of course. But I think as a consumer, I would say in that 10, 15, 20 range, especially if we're talking US dollars, because making the conversion to Australian dollars, we're talking 20, 25, 30.
To capture the most gamers, to make the game big from a sales figure standpoint, I think that $10, max $20 would be smart.
Agreed.
If they were to release it on console. And I think that it would need at least those basic features that I mentioned, a 30 NBA team challenge. So you have to beat all the teams. Maybe you get a reward for that or something like that, or you unlock something. I think that would be great. Maybe you unlock legends, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe they get some permissions.
Point, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they get some legends, and that would be great. The local head-to-head and co-op functionality, and the quick game, just like some basic online connectivity mode where you can face off against other gamers, and they could have like a basic win-loss leaderboard or something like that. I think that there's a market for that in the $10 to $20 range, and you can see that from the responses. And I just want to let people know too, who didn't see the post on Twitter, that I posted about a minute and a half of gameplay, so they know what the game looks like and plays like, and these are their responses to that. So that's why I put the footage with it. So lastly, the community did pick up some games recently. Juicy Shackme states, introducing the latest member of my gaming collection from my childhood hometown, and he shows him holding NBA Live 10 for PlayStation 3. So obviously you and I love NBA Live 10. We've spent a lot of time with it over the last few years. Every single session we've had on that game, I feel like has been a good time. And so that's a great pickup for him.
Oh, NBA Live 10 holds up extremely well. There's a reason that I keep playing it myself, that it's still in our rotation for Parsec sessions. And yeah, it's not too expensive usually to find, not too difficult to find. So I would definitely recommend that as one to any retro gamer.
Yeah, the gameplay is good. That's the bottom line. WizCard Rush on July 28th picked up Bulls versus Blazers for Sega Genesis, Bulls versus Lakers on Sega Genesis, and NBA 2K9 for PlayStation 2. And he picked them up at a flea market, and they appear to be complete in box. So those are excellent pickups. And then he posted again on July 14th, so actually 2 weeks before those pickups. And he stated, I picked these up this morning at a yard sale for $2 a piece, complete in box. $2 a piece. And what he got was NBA Action 94 for Sega Genesis and NBA Showdown 94 for Sega Genesis. So that's $4 for those two games. But yeah, he's been really adding to his collection lately.
It's awesome to see. Great pickups once again. And it goes to show that you don't have to spend a ton of money to get these classics. That is a really good price. Obviously, you are going to find those at flea markets, at yard sales, etc. If you go online to eBay or whatever, people are going to be charging what they call eBay prices. Obviously, they're trying to, and secondhand store prices sometimes are more expensive for those rarer games. So if you can be a savvy consumer, if you check out those yard sales, flea markets, etc., then you will find some great bargains like that. Online, you may have to pay a little bit more, but once again, a lot of these games were widely circulated. There's still plenty of copies in circulation on the secondhand market decades later, so don't pay an arm and a leg, especially for a game like Live 10 as well. Yes, games from the 90s might be a little bit more expensive, harder to find, but anything from 5th, 6th, certainly 7th generation onwards, don't pay too much for those.
Be a smart consumer. A lot of great deals out there. Andrew and I have been able to add to our collection, even picking up Lakers versus Celtics in the NBA playoffs, which is kind of a rare find, and both of us were able to find a good deal on that, complete in box. Don't let anybody scam you when it comes to picking up these classic titles. There's a lot of good deals out there. You just got to be smart about it.
I did pay a little bit more for my copy because of the international shipping, really, but at the same time, it was still a deal. It's still under 100 Australian dollars. For a rare collectible like that, yeah, I was not going to turn that down.
I won mine with a $20 bid. And to get a complete in box in good condition, Lakers versus Celtics for PC, that is $20 is a steal.
Did you end up picking up Slam City with Scottie Pippen for PC like I did?
I didn't. Actually, that's something I still need to get my hands on.
I got a pretty decent deal on that one. That's a pretty rare collectible, that one, and Jordan versus Bird and Lakers versus Celtics all for PC. Those were some of my most exciting pickups. Those in the NCAA games, because those I did have to import, so they were a little bit more expensive. So I kind of took my time and really waited for a really great deal to come along and put a bid on those. Or they might have been by now, actually. But I certainly waited until somebody wasn't trying to charge $500 for it.
Yeah, I have a lot of good memories with Slam City with Scottie Pippen from Sega CD from growing up. And until I met you, actually, I didn't even know that there was a PC version of that game. So that's definitely something that I got to get my hands on. I don't have a particular favorite in my collection, but my end goal is to collect every basketball video game ever made, which I think is probably one of your end goals as well. So I still have a lot of work to do there.
NBA Elite 11 might be a tough one.
Yeah, I'll probably never own that game, but it wouldn't technically be a bad thing for my collection because it never technically was released.
That's right.
Like
yeah.
it's not a game that I wouldn't be missing a true release.
But it is awesome to see people's pickups like that, so please keep sharing that in the Discord, in the forum, and on social media, because we are passionate collectors. We love to see your pickups as well, and if you have any advice to your fellow gamers about where you got a great deal, share that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's super helpful, whether it be on eBay, Amazon, wherever you ended up getting that game, please share that info.
With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, we thank you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week and every week, either on the NLSC, NBA-Live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media, that's where you can get in touch with us, and of course, stay up to date with all of our content. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
You can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. You can also reach me on the NLSC D43 and on YouTube D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X. The NLSC is on X and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, NBA-Live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.